Cincinnati listening to trade calls for Trey Hendrickson is the kind of internal tug of war that looks simple on the surface and messy underneath. On paper, this is straightforward. Talks on an extension have stalled, the player's clearly unhappy with the pace of negotiations, and the club is weighing whether to keep him for another season, tag him, or convert his market value into picks and players. In practice, this turns into a high-stakes chess match for both sides, and for every contender that might want to add a proven edge rusher. Start with the leverage factors. Hendrickson gives the Bengals a real problem. He's an established pass rush producer who created value for Cincy's front seven and has legitimate market demand. At the same time, the Bengals have leverage of their own. They control his immediate rights. He's under contract at reasonable cost next season, the team-friendly number the article mentioned, and they could franchise tag him if they wanted to retain him short term. That combination, a productive veteran with term left, but who's not monumentally expensive, lets Cincinnati posture as a seller while calculating the market price. Timing matters a lot. Teams that might have been willing to overpay earlier in the offseason for a clearer market window likely have already spent dollars and picks elsewhere. If Hendrickson had been moved back in March, the Bengals could have extracted a richer return. That's implicit in the reporting. As you get deeper into training camp and preseason, contenders' draft capital, cap flexibility, and roster needs become more concrete, which tends to depress the market for high-cost stars. So the longer this runs, the more the Bengals risk seeing the price come down, unless a bidding war erupts between two late-window contenders willing to mortgage picks for immediate help. What should the asking price realistically look like? The precedent set by elite edge trades and the Mac deal shows how expensive top pass rushers are. For a player of Hendrickson's caliber, the minimum sensible return for Cincinnati is multiple early picks or a single first-rounder paired with high-level defensive help. Expect the Bengals to push for A, at least 2 early-round picks if the acquiring team is desperate, or B, 1 first-round pick plus an established starter on defense and another mid-round pick. Cincinnati is unlikely to accept a single mid-first and a bag of lower picks unless the player package component is attractive. If teams balk at those prices, the Bengals' fallback is to keep Hendrickson, ride out the season, and revisit negotiations in the offseason, or use the franchise tag as leverage, with its own cost and ramifications. From the buyer's perspective, the evaluation is classic cost-benefit. Who needs Hendrickson enough to surrender premium capital? Contenders with clear championship windows and thin edge depth are the natural suitors. Teams that are a pass rush addition away from flipping playoff-level defense into championship-level defense. Those teams will weigh. Can Hendrickson be signed to a longer-term deal once traded, and at what price? And will the roster cost and picks hamper sustained competitiveness? For many playoff contenders, a short-term rental is fine if it dramatically improves pass rush pressure for one playoff run. For teams rebuilding, a mid to late draft pick is a far better purchase than weeks of salary cap stress. There are strategic trade-offs for the Bengals beyond pure assets. If they trade Hendrickson, who replaces his production this year, the Bengals have to account for film, scheme fit, and the cascade effect on their defensive identity. Good edge rushers are not plug and play. Depending on who comes back in a return package, Cincinnati could weaken its short-term defense and thereby reduce its own playoff ceiling. Conversely, if they keep Hendrickson but lose him for nothing next offseason, that's a lost opportunity for value extraction. That tension is the core reason teams in this spot often end up making a pragmatic rather than sentimental choice. Another wrinkle, the broader edge rusher market. We're in an era where top pass rushers have reset the market repeatedly. TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett type deals set high expectations. Hendrickson, while excellent, is evaluated within those comparators. Teams that believe they can get similar production from a younger, cheaper rusher via draft or internal development will be reluctant to surrender premium picks. What are the plausible endgames? 1. The Bengals sign Hendrickson to a new long-term deal if both parties decide an extension makes more sense than a mid-season trade. 2. The Bengals trade him for a hefty package, multiple picks and/or an immediate starter if a contending team meets Cincinnati's price. 3. The Bengals keep him and employ the franchise tag or let him play on the existing deal while negotiations continue. That buys time, but risks future value loss. Realistically, because the article suggests the Bengals have been listening for weeks and the asking price remains high, the most likely near-term outcome is either a trade for a substantial package or prolonged public stalemate until an inevitable resolution in the offseason. For Cincinnati, the smart play is to never let urgency drive the market. If they truly want a dynasty window, they should extract maximum value for Hendrickson, but only if the inbound assets meaningfully replace his production or accelerate roster reloading. If the offers aren't there, keeping him and continuing talks may well be the better course, especially since edge production is a premium skill that's not easily replaced with late picks. In short, Hendrickson creates legitimate trade value, but timing, market dynamics, and the Bengals' own championship timeline will determine whether Cincinnati cashes in now or holds firm. Either way, the situation is one of those camp sagas that can tilt a team's season before a single regular season game is played. Cincinnati quietly opening the door on Trey Hendrickson trade talks is the latest sign that this standoff has entered a transactional phase, where timing, leverage, and market appetite will decide everything. Hendrickson is a proven, high-floor edge who finished last season as an All-Pro and remains a highly productive pressure artist. That makes him one of the few defenders on the market who can legitimately move the needle for a contender. At the same time, his camp's patience and the Bengals' reported unwillingness so far to meet his price mean holding him into the season carries real roster and chemistry risks. From Cincinnati's perspective, there are three logical threads pushing them toward listening. First, the cap picture and precedent for elite pass rusher money created during the summer set a very expensive market. Teams are paying $20 million AAV for top edge talent, and the Bengals may calculate they won't be willing or able to match that number without reshuffling salary. Second, the club apparently felt the highest trade value existed earlier in the offseason. Delaying reduced the pool of realistic buyers and likely lowered expected return. Third, if Hendrickson won't commit long-term, the organization has to weigh paying a premium for 1 year of control versus flipping him for draft capital and complementary players who fit their timeline. For Hendrickson, the calculus is straightforward. Get a long-term payday or force a move to a contender that will offer it. His bargaining leverage is decent. He's young, productive, and under contract only so a trade is feasible, but it's not absolute. Teams acquiring him must not only surrender draft capital, but also be prepared to extend or re-up him at market value. Otherwise, they're buying a rental at a steep price. What kind of return should Cincinnati seek? Comparable star edge trades suggest multiple firsts or 2 firsts, plus a quality